The UGV Ravager's bridge erupted in chaos as emergency alarms screamed warnings about the imminent reactor explosion below. Captain Nexus Vorth watched his tactical displays show energy readings that indicated the mining facility would detonate within minutes, taking his entire fleet with it, unless they retreated immediately to minimum safe distance. All ships prepare for emergency withdrawal, Vorth commanded, while his crew scrambled to implement evacuation procedures they had never needed before. Deploy all shuttles and recover as many personnel as possible before the facility goes critical. None of them noticed the small figures moving through the Ravager's maintenance systems like ghosts in the machine. Lisa's companions had learned her lessons well and were applying Deathworld tactics to an environment their teachers had never imagined. They moved through spaces too small for most pirates and used the ship's own systems against its crew. Pip had discovered that the Ravager's internal security was designed to prevent boarding actions by enemy soldiers, not infiltration by Academy cadets, who thought like predators instead of warriors. She disabled alarm systems and unlocked blast doors while remaining completely invisible to the ship's monitoring equipment. Torvin and Kesh worked together to isolate key crew members and take control of critical systems. The Altarians' precision and the Draconian strength made them an effective team when combined with tactics that ignored every rule of civilized warfare. They captured the ship's communication center and weapons control without firing a single shot. Meanwhile, Lisa stood in the reactor control room making the most important decision of her life. The facility's fusion system was building toward what appeared to be catastrophic failure, but she maintained complete control over every aspect of the reaction. She could turn the apparent disaster into actual victory with the touch of a button. The pirates were evacuating their personnel from the facility and pulling their ships back to what they thought was safe distance. Once they reached minimum retreat position, Lisa could trigger a real explosion that would destroy the entire pirate fleet and end the threat they posed to countless innocent worlds. But the explosion would also kill thousands of pirates, including many who were probably slaves or conscripts forced into service by leaders like Vorth. It would destroy the mining facility and everyone still aboard, including Academy cadets, who had not yet been evacuated. It would create a debris field that could threaten shipping lanes and orbital stations throughout the system. Lisa stared at the controls and realized she was facing exactly the kind of choice that separated civilized people from monsters. She had the power to destroy her enemies completely, but using that power would make her become something she did not want to be. The communication system crackled to life as Pip's voice came through from the captured Ravager. "Lisa, we have control of their flagship and access to their entire communication network. Whatever you are planning, we can broadcast it to the whole galaxy." Lisa made her decision. Instead of triggering the explosion, she began implementing shutdown procedures that would stabilize the reactor and prevent any actual danger. At the same time, she activated every communication system in the facility and began broadcasting on all frequencies. "Attention all vessels, this is Cadet Lisa Martinez of the Galactic Military Academy." Her voice carried across space to every ship in the system and through hyperspace relays to monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. "The reactor emergency was a tactical deception designed to force your withdrawal from the facility. You are no longer in any danger." The pirates stared at their instruments in confusion as the reactor readings began returning to normal parameters. What they had thought was an imminent explosion was revealed to be a masterwork of technical manipulation that had never posed any real threat to anyone. "However," Lisa continued, "your entire fleet is now within range of the mining facilities. industrial defense systems which are under my direct control. I can destroy every ship you have without endangering a single innocent life in the surrounding systems. To prove her point, she triggered one of the facility's asteroid processing lasers and carved a precise line across the bow of Vorth's flagship. The demonstration showed that she had the power to destroy them all, but was choosing restraint instead of revenge. I am offering you an opportunity to surrender and face justice through proper legal channels, Lisa announced. Your crews will be treated according to galactic conventions for prisoners of war, and no one will be harmed unless you choose to continue hostilities. Captain Vorth's image appeared on the main screen, his cybernetic features twisted with rage and confusion. You dare lecture me about mercy after what you have done to my crews? You have been hunting us like animals for hours. I have been defending innocent people against predators, Lisa replied calmly. But I am not a predator myself. The difference between us is that I know when to stop fighting. The pirate captain seemed genuinely confused by her response. In his experience, enemies fought, until one side was completely destroyed. The concept of showing mercy to defeated opponents was foreign to his worldview. Lisa began broadcasting detailed evidence of the pirates' crimes, including their slave-trading operations and attacks on civilian targets. The information came from the Ravagers' own databases and painted a clear picture of systematic brutality spanning decades. But she also began broadcasting something else. She transmitted the names and personal histories of individual pirates, showing that many were refugees or conscripts who had been forced into service by threats against their families. She revealed the economic conditions that drove desperate people to join pirate crews and the social systems that created such desperation in the first place. The galaxy will see what you really are, Lisa announced, but they will also see what you could become if given the chance. Her companions had taken complete control of the Ravager and were systematically disabling the other pirate vessels without causing casualties. They used the ship's own weapons to target engines and communication systems, leaving the enemy fleet stranded but alive. The rescued Academy cadets were evacuated to safe areas, while Lisa maintained her position in the reactor control room. She could have escaped at any time, but she wanted to make sure the pirates understood that her mercy was a choice, not a necessity. Zara's voice came through the communication system as the rescued cadets reached the academy areas of the facility. Lisa, what you have done here is incredible, but you need to see the bigger picture. The entire galaxy is watching this broadcast, and what they are seeing will change everything. Lisa looked at the communication displays showing millions of beings across hundreds of worlds watching her actions. She realized that her decision to show mercy instead of taking revenge was being transmitted to every major population center in galactic space. The military commanders who had dismissed humans as primitive were watching a human cadet demonstrate tactical brilliance beyond anything in their textbooks. The philosophers who had argued that Deathworld species were inherently violent were watching a human choose compassion when she had the power to destroy her enemies. People of the galaxy, Lisa said, speaking directly to the countless beings who were monitoring the situation. We are all products of the worlds that shaped us. Earth taught me to survive in hostile conditions, but it also taught me to value life because I understand how fragile it can be. She began shutting down the industrial systems she had turned into weapons and restoring normal operations to the mining facility. Her demonstration of power was complete, and now she was demonstrating something even more important. The pirates will surrender because they understand they have been defeated, Lisa continued. But they will also be given opportunities to rebuild their lives in positive ways. Punishment without hope of redemption only creates more criminals. Captain Vorth's image reappeared on the screen, but his expression had changed from rage to something approaching respect. You could have killed us all, human. Why did you choose otherwise? Lisa thought about all the lessons Earth had taught her about survival and adaptation, and the importance of choosing when to fight and when to stop fighting. Because winning is not the same as destroying your enemies. Sometimes winning means showing them a better way to live. The pirate surrender was broadcast live across the galaxy as 7 warships powered down their weapons and submitted to Academy authority. But the real story was not the tactical victory, but the strategic wisdom that had achieved it. Lisa Martinez, the human cadet, who had been dismissed as a primitive Deathworld survivor, had demonstrated something that shocked the galaxy more than any display of violence could have. She had shown that true strength came not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to choose creation and protection even when destruction would have been easier. The aftermath would reshape military doctrine across dozens of species and open new channels for diplomatic solutions to conflicts that had seemed impossible to resolve. But for Lisa, the most important result was much simpler. She had proven that being different was not a weakness to overcome, but a strength to celebrate, and that the galaxy was big enough for all kinds of wisdom, including the hard-won knowledge that came from growing up on a world where everything wanted to kill you. Captain Nexus Vorth stood in the command center of his flagship staring at tactical displays that made no sense. His crews had been hunting Academy cadets for 6 hours, and instead of the quick capture operation he had planned, they were facing something completely outside their experience. 3 hunting parties had simply vanished without sending distress signals. Equipment was failing in ways that suggested sabotage, but his technical teams could find no evidence of tampering. Status report, Vorth demanded from his lieutenant, who was nervously checking scanner readings. Sir, we have confirmed captures of 157 cadets from the Academy ship, the lieutenant reported. But approximately 40 others escaped into the mining facility and are proving difficult to locate. Vorth's cybernetic eye glowed brighter as his anger increased. 40 Academy students should not be able to hide from 7 pirate crews equipped with military-grade hunting equipment. Either his people were becoming incompetent, or something unusual was happening in those tunnels. Meanwhile, Lisa and her 3 companions had turned the lower levels of the mining facility into their personal hunting ground. Every lesson she had learned about survival on Earth was being adapted to this alien environment with results that amazed even her. The facility's industrial systems were becoming weapons, and the pirates' own overconfidence was being used against them. Torvin had overcome his initial reluctance to violate safety regulations and was now enthusiastically rigging conveyor systems to create automated ambush points. The Altarian officer had discovered that his species' natural precision made him excellent at placing traps that would trigger at exactly the right moment to maximum effect. Kesh had stopped talking about honorable combat and started thinking like a predator. The Draconian warrior's natural strength and speed made him perfect for hit-and-run attacks that left pirates confused and demoralized. He had learned to strike from unexpected angles and disappear before enemies could respond. Pip had become their technical specialist, using her small size and natural curiosity to access systems the pirates did not know existed. The Kilinari cadet could modify facility equipment to serve purposes its designers had never imagined, while leaving no trace that anything had been changed. Together, they had developed tactics that no military academy in the galaxy taught because no military academy had ever needed to teach them. They were not fighting like soldiers or warriors or any other recognized military tradition. They were fighting like survivors, and the difference was becoming obvious to everyone involved. "The tunnel ghost strikes again," whispered one captured cadet to another as news of their rescuers' activities spread through the prison areas. The pirates had started calling Lisa by that name after she had freed 12 cadets from a holding cell by using the facility's atmospheric processors to flood an entire section with harmless but concealing vapor. The escape had been accomplished without firing a single shot or harming a single pirate, but it had taken 2 hours to clear the vapor, and by then the prisoners were long gone. The pirates were starting to fear an enemy they could not predict or understand. Vorth decided to end the hunt through overwhelming force. He ordered his crews to flood entire sections of the facility with toxic gas and begin systematically destroying the tunnel network with heavy explosives. If the fugitive cadets wanted to hide in holes like animals, then he would collapse every hole in the facility. Lisa felt the explosions getting closer as sections of tunnel collapsed around them. The pirates were no longer trying to capture them. Alive, and the facility's structure was becoming increasingly unstable. She led her companions through emergency passages toward the central hub where the facility's main computer systems were located. "They are trying to bring the whole place down on our heads," Pip said as dust and debris rained from the ceiling. "Which means they are getting desperate," Lisa replied. "Desperate enemies make mistakes we can exploit." They reached the facility's central hub to find themselves facing an impossible situation. The main computer center was heavily guarded, and the only approaches were through areas that were already under demolition. Lisa's group now numbered only 12 cadets after others had been captured or separated during the fighting. The aliens looked to Lisa for leadership even though she was the youngest and lowest ranking among them. They had learned that her survival instincts were more valuable than military rank or species superiority. When she proposed taking control of one of the pirate ships, they listened with attention instead of dismissing her as primitive. The UGV Ravager is their smallest vessel, but it has enough firepower to threaten the entire pirate fleet, Lisa explained while studying schematics Pip had retrieved from the facility's database. "If we can reach it and take control, we can turn their own weapons against them." "That ship has a crew of over 200 pirates," Torvin pointed out. "How can 12 Academy cadets possibly capture a fully armed pirate vessel?" Lisa smiled with an expression that would have made her Earth survival instructors proud. "The same way we have been surviving down here. We use their expectations against them. They expect us to fight like soldiers, so we fight like something they have never encountered before." The plan she outlined was insane by any reasonable military standard. It required perfect coordination between team members who had learned to work together only through desperate necessity. It depended on dozens of variables they could not control and assumed the pirates would react in specific ways to threats they had never faced. But the alien cadets had seen what human tactics could accomplish when applied by someone who truly understood them. They had watched Lisa turn industrial equipment into weapons and facility systems into allies. They had learned to think like predators instead of prey and to use intelligence instead of strength. Most importantly, they had learned to trust each other in ways their military training had never taught them. Lisa was not their commanding officer, but she had become their leader through proven competence under impossible conditions. When she said the plan would work, they believed her because she had not been wrong yet. The execution required Lisa to create the largest distraction of her life while her companions infiltrated the Ravager through maintenance shafts and service corridors the pirates did not know existed. She would use the facility's fusion reactor to create what appeared to be a catastrophic meltdown while actually maintaining complete control over the reaction. You realize this could actually destroy the entire star system if something goes wrong, Pip warned. Lisa nodded grimly. Which is why nothing can go wrong. We get one chance at this, and if we fail, everyone dies, including the billions of people living in nearby systems. She began making final preparations for a reactor overload that would appear genuine to every scanner and monitoring system the pirates possessed. The trick was creating all the symptoms of imminent explosion while actually maintaining perfect safety margins. It required understanding fusion dynamics at a level that most engineers spent years studying. But Lisa had grown up on a world where understanding dangerous systems was a matter of survival. Earth's industrial zones were filled with barely contained reactions and unstable processes that killed anyone who did not respect their power. She approached the reactor with the same cautious confidence she had once used around Earth's volcanic processing plants. Her companions moved toward their target through passages that Lisa had mapped during their weeks of hiding in the facility. They carried improvised weapons and communication equipment, but their real advantage was the tactical thinking Lisa had taught them. They no longer fought like the species they were born as, but like the predators they had chosen to become. Seti, Ravager hung in space like a metal shark waiting for prey that would never come. Its crew was focused on the demolition operations below and the captured cadets in their holding cells. None of them suspected that their ship was about to be attacked by the very people they thought they were hunting. Lisa's hands moved over the reactor controls with practiced precision. Everything had to happen in exactly the right sequence, or the plan would collapse into genuine disaster. She thought about Zara and the other captured cadets, and about the pirates who would soon learn what it meant to face an enemy who fought without rules or limitations. The reactor began building toward what every monitoring system would interpret as catastrophic failure. Warning signals flooded the pirate communication networks, and emergency procedures activated automatically. Lisa smiled as she watched her enemies react exactly as she had predicted they would. It was time to show the galaxy what Deathworld tactics could accomplish when applied by someone who truly understood them. Lisa pressed herself against the cold metal wall and listened to the approaching footsteps. 3 pirates were moving through the maintenance tunnel in standard search formation, exactly as she had predicted. Their heavy boots echoed off the walls, and their helmet lights cut through the darkness like angry eyes searching for prey. She had positioned her 3 companions in a side passage 20 meters back with strict instructions to remain absolutely silent no matter what they heard. This was not about fighting the pirates directly. This was about using their own confidence and expectations against them. The first pirate passed her hiding spot without seeing the carefully placed debris that Lisa had arranged to look like natural tunnel damage. The second pirate was focused on his scanner readings and missed the thin wire stretched across the passage at ankle height. The third pirate was watching their rear and never noticed the small device Lisa had taken from Pip's toolkit, now wedged against a support beam directly above their heads. Lisa waited until all 3 were in the kill zone, then triggered the remote detonator. The small charge was not enough to hurt anyone, but it was perfectly placed to bring down a section of loose ceiling material. The pirates found themselves buried under tons of rock and metal debris, while Lisa slipped away through a ventilation shaft they had not known existed. When she rejoined her companions, they stared at her with expressions of awe and fear. None of them had ever seen anything like what she had just accomplished. In their military training, enemies were defeated through superior firepower or tactical brilliance. They had never considered using the environment itself as a weapon. "How did you know exactly where they would be standing?" Torvin asked. Lisa shrugged. People move in predictable patterns when they think they are safe. The pirates have been successful because they face opponents who fight according to rules and expectations. They do not expect someone to think like the environment instead of thinking like a soldier. Kesh was staring at the sealed tunnel entrance, where muffled voices could be heard calling for rescue equipment. You did not kill them. Why show mercy to enemies who would not show mercy to us? Because killing them would have required explosives that would alert every pirate in the facility to our location, Lisa explained. This way we remove 3 hunters from the search pattern and create a distraction that will draw others away from our escape route. Dead enemies are just dead, but confused enemies can be useful. Pip had been examining the device Lisa had used to trigger the collapse. The small Chilinari was fascinated by the elegant simplicity of the trap. You turned my geological scanner into a remote detonator. How did you know it would work? Most electronic devices can be modified if you understand their basic functions, Lisa said. Your scanner sends focused energy pulses to analyze rock density. I just redirected that energy. Pulse toward an unstable support beam at exactly the right moment. They began moving through the facility using lessons Lisa had learned during childhood survival training on Earth. Instead of trying to fight their way through enemy positions, they went around them. Instead of using main corridors, they found maintenance shafts and service tunnels. Instead of making noise that would attract attention, they moved like shadows and left no trace of their passage. Lisa taught them to read the facility like a living organism. Air current patterns revealed hidden passages and potential escape routes. Vibration patterns in the walls indicated where heavy machinery was operating and where pirates were moving in large numbers. Sound propagation through the metal structure could tell them exactly where their enemies were and what they were doing. This is incredible, Pip whispered as they crawled through a narrow ductwork system. I have been trained to use technology to gather information, but you are gathering the same data just by paying attention to natural phenomena. Technology is useful, but it can fail or be detected, Lisa replied. Environmental awareness cannot be jammed or turned off. The facility itself is telling us everything we need to know if we learn how to listen. They reached a junction where 3 major tunnel systems converged near the facility's central power distribution center. Lisa could hear pirate voices coming from multiple directions as search teams coordinated their efforts. The aliens had given up trying to fight according to military doctrine, and were now simply trying to capture the remaining cadets through brute force and superior numbers. We could sabotage the power grid, Torvin suggested. Cut electricity to the entire facility and escape in the darkness. Lisa shook her head. That would help us escape, but it would not help the other cadets who are still trapped. We need to do something that changes the entire situation instead of just improving our own odds. She studied the facility schematics that Pip had downloaded from a maintenance terminal. The mining operation used massive industrial equipment to process raw materials, and the entire system was controlled from a central command center. If they could reach that location, they might be able to turn the facility's own systems against the pirates. You want to take control of the mining equipment? Kesh asked. That machinery is designed to break apart asteroids and process tons of raw ore. What could we possibly do with industrial tools that we could not do with military weapons? Lisa smiled. Military weapons are designed to fight other military weapons. Industrial equipment is designed to reshape entire environments. The pirates have superior firepower, but they do not have anything that can stand up to machines designed to tear apart small planets. The plan required splitting their tiny group and relying on perfect timing across multiple systems they only barely understood. Lisa would create a distraction in the main processing center, while the others infiltrated the command center and gained control of the facility's automated systems. Everything had to work perfectly, or they would all be captured or killed. "This is insane," Torvin said, but he was already checking his equipment and preparing to move. "No military academy in the galaxy teaches tactics like this." "Maybe that is the problem," Lisa replied. "Military academies teach you to fight other military academies. They do not teach you to fight people who ignore all the rules you learned. They split up and began moving toward their assigned positions. Lisa worked her way through the facility's lower levels toward the main processing center, where conveyor systems and sorting machinery created a maze of moving parts and industrial hazards. The pirates had posted guards at all the obvious entrances, but they had not considered that someone might approach through the machinery itself. Lisa climbed onto a conveyor belt and rode it through the sorting system like a piece of processed ore. Industrial scanners examined her and classified her as an unknown object to be sent to manual inspection. Robot arms picked her up and moved her through a series of chambers designed to separate valuable materials from worthless debris. Emerged in the central processing chamber where massive machines pulverized raw materials and fed them into refinement systems. The noise was deafening, and the air was thick with dust and chemical vapors. Pirates could not see or hear anything in this environment, but Lisa felt right at home in conditions that would have been considered extreme hazards anywhere else in the galaxy. The facility's fusion reactor powered everything from life support to the industrial equipment, and it was completely automated for safety reasons. Lisa began making modifications to the control systems using techniques Pip had taught her, combined with intuitive understanding of how mechanical systems could be pushed beyond their intended limits. Her companions had reached the command center and were sending signals through the facility's internal communication system. Everything was proceeding according to plan, but Lisa realized she had made a critical error in her calculations. The reactor modifications would indeed give them control over the industrial systems, but the feedback effects would threaten the entire star system. She had to choose between ensuring victory over the pirates and protecting innocent lives throughout the region. It was exactly the kind of impossible decision that military training never prepared anyone to make. Lisa stared at the reactor controls and realized that what she did next would define not just her own future, but how the galaxy viewed humanity forever. The UGV Harmony dropped out of hyperspace directly into a nightmare. Mining Colony Delta 7 hung in space like a wounded animal surrounded by 7 predator ships that looked like they had been built from scavenged metal and bad intentions. The distress signal had been a trap, and everyone aboard the Academy vessel was about to learn what real danger felt like. Lisa pressed her face against the observation deck window as electromagnetic nets erupted from the mining station and wrapped around the Harmony like giant spiderwebs. The ship's engines died instantly, and emergency lighting bathed everything in hellish red. Around her, the other cadets stood frozen in shock as their safe, controlled world collapsed in the span of heartbeats. Captain Nexus Vorth's image appeared on every screen throughout the ship. The Morgathi pirate leader was a walking horror show of cybernetic implants and battle scars with eyes that glowed like dying stars. When he smiled, his teeth were pointed metal, and his voice carried the weight of countless atrocities. "Welcome, young fools, to your new reality," Vorth said with obvious pleasure. "You have sailed into my web thinking you were heroes coming to save the day. Instead, you are merchandise that will fetch excellent prices in the slave markets of the Outer Rim." The ship shuddered as boarding pods attached to the hull like mechanical leeches. Lisa could hear cutting tools beginning to work through the thick metal barriers that separated the academy students from the pirates who wanted to harvest them. Most of her classmates were still standing around in shock, but Lisa was already moving. She grabbed Zara's arm and pulled her friend toward the nearest emergency stairwell. "We need to get off this ship now, before they break through the main barriers." Zara stumbled along behind her, still trying to process what was happening. "But the faculty will organize a defense. We should stay with the group and follow orders." Lisa kept moving toward the lower decks where fewer people would think to look for escaping students. The faculty trained for civilized warfare with rules and honor codes. "These pirates do not follow rules, Zara. They will cut through our defenses like a hot knife through butter." Behind them, they could hear the sounds of battle beginning as the pirates breached the main sections of the ship. Laser fire echoed through the corridors, along with screams and the harsh voices of attackers who had done this many times before. Lisa forced herself not to look back as she led Zara deeper into the ship's maintenance areas. They met up with other fleeing cadets in the engineering section. Vex Talar was trying to organize a proper military response with formation fighting and coordinated retreats. The Zentorian warrior had never faced an enemy that did not follow the accepted rules of engagement, and his tactical training was useless against pirates who fought dirty and took no prisoners. "We must establish a defensive perimeter," Vex Talar announced to the 43 cadets who had managed to escape the initial attack. "If we can hold the main choke points, we can force them into predictable attack patterns." Lisa wanted to scream. These cadets were thinking like soldiers when they needed to think like prey. The pirates had superior numbers, better weapons, and knowledge of the ship's layout. A defensive stand would just make it easier for the attackers to corner and capture them. "We should split up into smaller groups and try to reach the escape pods," Lisa suggested, but her voice was drowned out by Vex Talar's commands. The defensive strategy failed within the first hour. Pirates flooded the engineering section from multiple directions, using routes that did not appear on any tactical map. They fought with brutal efficiency and showed no mercy to cadets who tried to surrender according to galactic military conventions. By the time the survivors retreated to the maintenance tunnels beneath the mining station, their numbers had dropped to 28. The tunnels were dark and cramped and filled with the constant hum of industrial machinery. Lisa felt more comfortable here than she had anywhere else since leaving Earth. This was the kind of environment where human advantages finally mattered. The aliens, with their larger bodies and reliance on advanced technology, were at a severe disadvantage in the narrow passages. Pirates began hunting them with heat sensors and motion detectors. They used sonic scramblers to prevent communication and flooded certain sections with toxic gas to force the cadets into predictable escape routes. Lisa realized they were not just being hunted, they were being herded like cattle toward some kind of collection point. She tried to warn the others, but they were too panicked to listen to tactical advice from someone they considered a primitive. Vex Talar was still trying to organize proper military formations, even though the tunnel system made such tactics impossible. Other cadets followed his lead because he was the highest ranking among them, and following rank structure was all they knew. Lisa found herself separated from the main group when a section of tunnel collapsed during a pirate demolition attack. She was trapped with 3 other cadets who had been following her instead of Vex Talar. Pip, the small Kilinari, was crying softly, while Commander Torvin, an Altarian officer candidate, tried to maintain discipline despite obvious terror. Kesh, a proud draconian warrior, kept muttering about honor and glorious death in ways that suggested he was close to a psychological break. The 4 of them crawled through a maintenance shaft that was barely wide enough for human shoulders. Lisa led the way, because she was the smallest and had the best feel for navigating tight spaces. Behind her, she could hear the others struggling with claustrophobia and the alien sensation of being enclosed by hostile environment. "Where are we going?" Torvin whispered. "Away from the hunting parties," Lisa replied. "The pirates are using predictable search patterns because they expect us to move in predictable ways. If we can get outside their search grid, we might have a chance." "This is madness," Kesh growled. "Warriors do not hide in holes like frightened rodents." Lisa stopped crawling and turned to face the Draconian. "Warriors who announce their presence to enemies with superior firepower do not live long enough to win battles. Sometimes survival requires looking like a rodent until you can figure out how to become a predator." They emerged into a section of the mining facility that had been abandoned for repairs. Lisa immediately began cataloging potential weapons and escape routes, while the others tried to establish communication with their scattered classmates. The facility's industrial equipment offered dozens of possibilities for someone who understood how mechanical systems could be turned into weapons or traps. "Look at this place," Pip said with wonder. "All these machines and conveyor systems. It's like a giant puzzle waiting to be solved." Lisa smiled for the first time since the attack began. Maybe there was hope after all if her companions could start thinking creatively instead of just following their military training. The pirates expected them to fight like civilized soldiers, but Lisa had been raised by a world that did not believe in civilized anything. She began explaining how they could use the mining equipment to level the playing field. Heavy machinery could be rigged to create diversions or barriers. Conveyor systems could be turned into escape routes or trap mechanisms. The facility's own atmospheric processors could be used to create confusion and concealment. "You want us to sabotage industrial equipment?" Torvin asked in horror. "That violates dozens of safety regulations." "Safety regulations are written by people who live in safe places," Lisa replied. "We are not in a safe place anymore. We need to start thinking like the environment we are in instead of the environment we came from." The sound of approaching searchers cut their conversation short. Lisa motioned for silence and led her small group deeper into the mechanical maze. Behind them, pirate voices grew louder as the hunters followed trails that would soon lead to their hiding place. It was time to stop being prey and start being predators. Lisa had learned from the best teacher in the galaxy how to survive when everything wanted to kill you. Now she was going to teach that lesson to the galaxy. Lisa Martinez crouched behind the artificial boulder and checked her equipment for the third time in 5 minutes. The survival course instructor had said the temperature might drop by 5 degrees during the exercise. To Lisa, this meant potential hypothermia risk, but her alien classmates were walking around in light clothing without a care in the world. The Galactic Military Academy on Serenity Prime was nothing like the harsh military schools back on Earth. Everything here was clean and controlled and safe. Too safe for someone who grew up on a world where stepping outside without proper gear could kill you in a dozen different ways. Lisa watched Vex Talar stride confidently across the training ground. The tall Zentaurian warrior had golden skin that seemed to glow in the gentle sunlight and moved with the fluid grace of someone who had never known real danger. Behind him walked 3 Helixian cadets, whose crystalline bodies caught and reflected light in beautiful patterns. They were discussing battle tactics in their musical language while completely ignoring their surroundings. None of them noticed the small flying creatures circling overhead. Lisa had been tracking them for 20 minutes. They were probably harmless according to the safety briefings, but on Earth anything that moved in patterns like that usually meant trouble. She kept one eye on them while organizing her survival kit. The other human cadet, Zara Kim, approached with her usual diplomatic smile. Zara had adapted well to academy life and seemed to enjoy the social aspects that Lisa found exhausting. Where Lisa saw potential threats and escape routes, Zara saw opportunities to make friends and build alliances. "You know the exercise is supposed to be relaxing, right?" Zara said, sitting down beside Lisa. "It's just a basic environmental awareness test." Lisa continued watching the flying creatures. Basic for who? These people think a 5-degree temperature change is extreme weather. Back home, that would be called Tuesday morning. Zara laughed, but Lisa could hear the slight concern in her voice. They had talked about this before. Lisa's constant vigilance and preparation made their alien classmates uncomfortable. The academy staff had even suggested she might need psychological evaluation to deal with what they called Deathworld trauma responses. The truth was that Lisa was not traumatized. She was trained. Every human was trained by Earth itself, from birth to death. You learned to read weather patterns by age 5, or you got caught in acid rain. You learned to identify dangerous plants by 7, or you ate something that would put you in the hospital. You learned to move quietly and observe carefully by 10, or you became prey for one of the many predators that hunted in the ruins of old cities. Earth was classified as a Class X death world by galactic standards. The academy professors spoke about it in hushed tones as if it were some mythical hell dimension instead of just home. They could not understand how humans had not only survived, but thrived on a planet that would kill most galactic species within hours of exposure. The exercise continued with various challenges designed to test basic survival skills. Lisa completed each task efficiently while her classmates struggled with concepts she had learned as a child. When asked to find shelter, she immediately spotted 3 different options and had backup plans for each. When asked to identify edible plants, she could tell not just which ones were safe, but which ones provided the best nutrition and which had medicinal properties. Her thoroughness made the other cadets nervous. During the group meal preparation, Vextaler had actually stepped away when Lisa began explaining how to properly clean and prepare the provided food supplies. The Zentaurian warrior who could lift 3 times his own body weight was uncomfortable, watching a human girl gut a fish. The flying creatures finally made their move just as the sun began setting. They dove toward the group in a coordinated attack pattern that would have been beautiful if it was not potentially dangerous. Lisa was already moving before they reached striking distance, rolling behind cover and pulling Zara with her. The other cadets stood frozen in confusion as the creatures swooped around them. The attack lasted only seconds before the creatures flew away, but the damage to group morale was significant. Several cadets were shaken by the sudden aggressive behavior from what they had been told were harmless local wildlife. "How did you know they were going to do that?" asked Pip, a small furry Keelanari cadet, whose large eyes were still wide with shock. Lisa shrugged. "Pattern recognition. They were circling and watching us for too long. Plus, the way they moved suggested pack hunting behavior." The alien cadets exchanged glances that Lisa had learned to recognize. It was the look that meant they thought she was either paranoid or primitive or both. Sometimes she wondered if there was a difference in their minds. That night, in their shared dormitory, Zara brought up the subject that had been hanging between them for months. "Lisa, you have to understand how you look to them. When you react to things they cannot see or prepare for dangers they do not recognize, they start thinking. Humans are either psychic or crazy." Lisa stared at the ceiling where she had mentally mapped all the emergency exits and structural weak points within the first week of arriving. Maybe the problem is not that we see too much. Maybe the problem is that they see too little. What do you mean? Look at this place, Zara. Everything is controlled and predicted and safe. These people have never had to develop real survival instincts because they never needed them. Their worlds are peaceful. Their weather is mild. Their wildlife is domesticated. They have had thousands of years to forget what their ancestors knew about staying alive. Zara was quiet for a moment. So you think we have an advantage? I think we have perspective they lack, but they think we have problems they need to fix. The conversation was interrupted by an emergency announcement over the dormitory communication system. All cadets were to report to the main assembly hall immediately for an urgent briefing. Lisa and Zara dressed quickly and joined the stream of confused students making their way through the academy corridors. The assembly hall buzzed with nervous energy as hundreds of cadets from dozens of species gathered under the high, vaulted ceiling. Academy Commandant Torex stood at the central podium, his usual calm demeanor replaced by obvious tension. Behind him, a holographic display showed a star map with a pulsing red warning signal. Cadets, Commandant Torex began his voice, carrying clearly through the hall's acoustic systems. We have received a distress signal from mining colony Delta 7 in the Outer Rim. The colony is under attack by hostile forces and requesting immediate assistance. A murmur ran through the assembled cadets. Most of them had never seen actual combat outside of controlled training exercises. The idea of real danger affecting real people was foreign to their protected academy experience. The training vessel UGV Harmony will be departing immediately to provide aid, the Commandant continued. This will serve as a practical exercise in emergency response and crisis management. All senior cadets will participate under the supervision of Academy faculty. Lisa felt her stomach tighten. Something about this situation felt wrong, but she could not put her finger on exactly what. Maybe it was the timing, or maybe it was the way the Commandant avoided making eye contact with the assembled students. Her Earth-trained instincts were sending warning signals, but she had learned not to voice such concerns without concrete evidence. As the cadets filed out to prepare for departure, Lisa noticed that most of them seemed excited rather than concerned. For them, this was an adventure, a chance to apply their training in a real situation. They talked eagerly about finally seeing action and proving themselves as galactic defenders. Lisa wished she could share their optimism, but her survival instincts were screaming that something was very wrong with this picture. Unfortunately, she had learned that sharing such feelings only reinforced the stereotype that humans were paranoid primitives who jumped at shadows. The UGV Harmony launched 6 hours later, carrying 200 cadets and 50 faculty members, toward what everyone believed would be a straightforward rescue mission. Lisa spent the journey checking and rechecking her equipment while trying to ignore the growing sense of dread that seemed to follow her everywhere these days.